This week on Perspective, Spain in crisis, arrests and protests over Catalonia's fight for independence. The political crisis in Spain is deepening. It was just over a month ago that the situation exploded in violence. Heavily armed police tried to disrupt a referendum on independence in the region of Catalonia. It was a vote the central government in Madrid declared illegitimate and unconstitutional and vowed to stop. The images of voters being brutally attacked as they tried to make their way to the polls recalled for some the history of the ruthless repression of Franco's Spain. In spite of the chaos of the vote, Catalonia's president, Carles Puigdemont, declared victory, and the Catalan parliament voted for independence. Madrid responded by firing Catalonia's political leaders, accusing them of rebellion, sedition, and misuse of public funds. 8 former parliamentarians have been jailed, a move denounced as political imprisonment. And as we record this program, prosecutors have asked for a European arrest warrant for President Puigdemont, who has fled to Belgium. It's a mess. This week, we'll assess the broad implications of Catalonia's drive for independence, both within Spain and beyond its borders. We'll also take a look at some of the comparisons being made to Quebec's sovereignty movement. But we begin on the ground in Barcelona with journalist Stephen Burgen, who has been covering this story for The Guardian newspaper. First, tell me how you would describe the atmosphere there now.
The atmosphere, I would say, is really quite tense. Somewhere between sort of tense and despairing. I think the Spanish government, the Spanish government will say this has nothing to do with us. This was a decision made by the courts. But this is not how it's being seen. It's being seen as a political decision. And frankly, the separation between the judiciary and the government in Spain is not what it might be. I think in some ways people anticipated that what would happen, but it's still amazing that this is what they've done, that they have simply jailed the entire executive of the Catalan government, except for the ones who are in Belgium, on the basis of them being a flight risk. A couple of them complained this morning that because Carles Puigdemont, the president, had fled to Belgium, he increased the risk of them being treated as a flight risk. Nevertheless, many legal people say there was no need for this. There were other means. They could have been put under house arrest. They could have just had their passports taken away. It seems vindictive. It seems designed to increase the animosity between Catalonia and the rest of Spain. And basically, at a time when everything was just chilling a little bit, they have upped the ante again.
Just how divisive is this whole issue? I mean, the drama and the theatrics of it are astonishing in some ways, but how divisive is it among people that you talk to?
Well, I mean, there are 2 divisions. One is between Catalan people and the rest of Spain, but I think much worse, in particularly over the past 4 to 6 weeks, has been the division between people who live in Catalonia. The Catalan government has behaved all along because they have a parliamentary majority, as though they are carrying with them a majority of the people, although they know perfectly well they're only carrying about 47% of the population. And the other, más o menos, sorry, it's Spanish, I'll say that again, the other more or less half of the population who haven't had a voice until now are speaking up and saying, this is, you cannot speak in our name. You don't represent all of us. You don't even represent half of us. And the division, everyone I have spoken to in the past 2 weeks, whether they are Catalans or people who live here whose parents are Spanish, or foreigners like myself, all say that they have lost friends, that they have been in unpleasant arguments with members of their family. It's been extremely divisive.
Who holds the cards now? I mean, I know that there's an arrest warrant out for Puigdemont himself, and he may well end up in jail at some point. But where's the next shoe coming from, if I can put it that way?
Well, I mean, it was coming from the fact that when the Spanish government last week introduced direct rule, they also simultaneously announced that we would have regional Catalan elections on the 21st of December. And that seemed to be a good move. It was something positive, something that people could kind of rally around. But it seems bizarre that we could be having elections when the previous government is actually in jail. I mean, many of those people who have been jailed today would have been standing. I mean, the leader of one of the main independence parties, Oriol Junqueras, has just been jailed. And of course, because they're in preventive custody, they don't have a trial date. We don't know, are they going to be in jail for a week? Are they going to be in jail for 6 months? Justice moves extremely slowly in Spain. The idea that we could have elections under these circumstances it just doesn't seem right. It seems extremely improbable. And so it's quite difficult to answer your question because we now have basically only one side active, which is the Spanish side. The Catalan side, politically speaking, is incarcerated.
What's your assessment of the risk for violence over the course of these next few weeks leading up to that election day?
Well, everyone asks this question, and I think that in some ways the Spanish government hopes or is pushing people to the edge, hoping that this will spread into violence, whereas, as I'm sure you know, one of the great strengths of the Catalan independence movement has been its ability to mount enormous but very peaceful demonstrations, which it's doing at this moment. They're not enormous, but there are demonstrations in Barcelona and all over Catalonia against the incarceration of their leaders. But, you know, I'm sure that there are many people out there thinking, well, what have we got to lose?
Stephen, thank you very much for your insight on this.
Okay, you're welcome.